Today is World Water Day. It's the UN's World Water Day. Um, and there was an article from NPR that I thought we've been talking a lot about water more recently because of uh, we've been talking about water more recently, primarily, of course, because of Flint. But there's so many other issues. There's issues in terms of the Newark City public schools. Um, there's been an issue in Mississippi. I mean, it's been issues all over the place. We just got an update from Maricopa County that there were 1.9 million. There are 1.9 million registered voters in Maricopa County. There are only 60 polling places, and they're saying that people are waiting up to 4 hours in line to vote. I mean, we usually don't hear about that waiting in line long like that, as to my knowledge, in a primary. That's like general, election voting waiting time. Which even for that, that's crazy. That you're waiting in line 4 hours to try and vote. I mean, we really need to work on creating a system where it's easier for people to engage. I mean, when you look at some of the pictures from Twitter, there are people, at least the weather seems nice, thankfully. But there are people, I remember in 2004 in Ohio, it was raining. Election day was a rainy day, very muddy, but people were waiting in line in many places outside in the rain for hours to vote. So it's definitely something that we need to be more cognizant of. We need to be more active and involved in our local communities and county level, organizations, to figure out what are ways that we can try and help and address situations like this, so that down the line, we don't have people. Because if you're elderly, if you're handicapped, yeah, there's supposed to be provisions, but not everyone is trained properly at polling sites to understand that, handicapped should probably get, certain preference and things of that nature. So, if you're handicapped, if you're elderly, if you don't even know those opportunities to possibly go in a different line or a different way to vote even exist, right, where they do, you might be discouraged from going to vote because it's 4 hours in line. I mean, just think about how many people are turned away. I mean, that takes passion, right, and determination to stand in line for 4 hours to vote. Also, if you have a job, how are you going to stand in line? Another case for early voting on the flip side. But if you didn't take advantage of early voting, it's for whatever reason, we put things off because we think we'll get to it. We think we'll get to it. This, election day, I'll just go by there and vote. And then you get there. I mean, how many people turn away because it's just too long of a wait? Um, so that's just a little aside from what's going on. Also, just want to, anyone tuning in right now, we're not going to start taking calls until 10 o'clock. If you're also just tuning in and you notice that, wait a minute, that's not Ben. Anoa Changa, I'm taking over on Tuesday nights, and I will be hanging out with you for the next few weeks or so. And Ben will be back tomorrow. So shout out to everyone on Spreaker. I'm usually not over there, peeking in and seeing what's going on, but just wanted to quickly say hey to you guys as well. I know I tend to dibble and dabble and hang out in the YouTube chat room, but I'm trying to, I'm running it. I'm in the captain's seat tonight, so I'm trying to pay attention to everything that's going on. So not as active in the chat rooms tonight, but I'm gonna get the hang of it, I promise you guys. So thank you for hanging in there tonight. But back to real quickly, World Water Day. This was a really interesting article in NPR, and it said, "What makes water unsafe? Not the color, taste, or smell." I actually kind of disagree with that from my own personal experience, that water, if smell, color, taste, if that stuff is off, then it's a possibility that your water actually is unsafe or has something wrong with it. But um, but this article in NPR was talking about that many of the factors that actually affect our water is contaminated by things like, microbes or parasites, or things that we can't actually see, whether it's you know whether it's some kind of E. coli, some type of bacterial or parasitic outbreak. The fight for clean water across is a global issue. We have the issue that we have here in terms of our old pipe systems, when you're talking about like a Flint situation, or even situation, I've talked about the West Virginia water crisis before, in Charleston, West Virginia, 300,000 people in a 5-county area without water officially for like 3 weeks, more like 5 months in real life. Um, But globally, a bigger issue for a lot of people has to do with sanitary issues and contamination from things from chlorella to dysentery, typhoid, polio, things that we don't necessarily have to deal with here in the United States. We have other issues we have to deal with, but it's still like a huge problem globally. And they're actually, according to the article, like the World Health Organization was saying that a lot of the issues in terms of waterborne illness have to actually do with the waste management, particularly human waste, and how we have these dense urban areas where you just have waste everywhere, issues with sanitation and hygiene. I mean, when we talk about, international development and investment in communities, we have very rapidly growing urban areas that do not necessarily have the same infrastructure, or even if they do have the infrastructure, the populations are growing because of issues, whether it's related to, lack of employment, famine, weather issues. I mean, all types of stuff drive, huge urban increases in developed, what we call developing countries. Which I don't even know. The terminology changes from when you're in school and learn about this stuff. I don't even know if developing countries even still the emerging country. I'm not even sure what the proper terminology is. I'll have to research that. But it's estimated that a quarter of the world's population actually drinks water that is at least occasionally contaminated with fecal matter. And that ranges from like 14% in Europe to about 52% in Africa. So dealing with water contamination issues, whether we're talking about safe drinking water issues in terms of our piping system, and whether it's chemical releases in our water or minerals and other, naturally occurring elements that should not be in our drinking water, like we were dealing with here in the States. There is, to a lesser extent, stuff about, contamination and waste management, things like that. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that Stacey and I've talked about previously is like, you talk about coal ash. Here in the United States, we have issues with contamination. Part of the problem here in Georgia, there is a waste management facility, the coal ash, leached into the soil, and this is another problem. We start talking about environmental issues. We start talking about the disproportionate proximity to whether it's dumps, whether it's toxic waste facilities, manufacturing, industrial, entities, to minority, to communities of color, poor, low-income communities as well. Still no results from Arizona, but we've heard that Phoenix. Sorry to interrupt, because I'm getting stuff starting to come in a little bit. Still no Arizona primary results, but we've heard that Phoenix, Arizona, there is a precinct in Phoenix that has run out of Dem ballots. So while that's good on the one hand, because that means yay, a lot of Dems, a lot of people out voting, that's not good that they've run out of ballots, and how they're going to handle that. We'll be waiting to see. But water is a food security issue. It's an environmental issue. I mean, water is life. I know that sounds, cliche, but bless the maker and his waters. Like it's extremely important, and I wanted to raise that because water has become something that's very important to me. Water law is a real thing. It's a huge, emerging field, and with the Flint issues that going on with the situation, like I said, that I went through in West Virginia, and I mean there continues to be issues with impacted, communities whose water systems are affected, whether it's poor management, such as a Flint issue, or New York City school, how New York City schools has the issue, or if we're talking about an issue with some type of chemical contamination, or as we're talking about. So kind of shifting a little bit now to the next part of our show. I see Nisi came on. Hi, Nisi.